And it helps a lot. It also helps if you've had sunburn. It's like if you've had any form of sunburn and for some other skin irritations and stuff like some rashes, you put it on it. It's basically a medicine and it helps to calm it down, right? It has some calming properties to help with inflammation.
Miss, to me,
to
me, aloe vera is bad.
Pardon? Let me hear the.
To me, aloe vera smells bad.
It does. It has a kind of funny
smell bad.
scent.
It smells like really bad.
It does have a bad scent. I think especially that's the chlorophyll in the slime. Chlorophyll is the green pigment that plants get. I'm sorry if you're hearing a little noise in the background. You'll just have to bear with me. Someone cutting the grass right now. Is it unbearable or it's not too bad?
Miss, when I first smell aloe vera, it smelled like someone cooking some curry chicken, but they don't know how to cook it.
So it's not like somebody's spoiling our pots. Oh boy. Oh boy. All right, hold on, guys. I'm gonna have to move to another room because someone's coming to cut the grass right next to my room. So bear with me for a second. All right. That's of when you're working online, right? So the person cutting my yard, he moved right next to my room, so you probably can still hear it a little. Is it noisy or is it okay for you?
It's okay.
Hello? It's okay? Okay.
I'm not hearing it.
You're not hearing it? Okay, good. Well, I was hearing it really loud in my room, so I moved to a different location. So anyway, so these are some of the plants that we have in our Caribbean ecosystem. So tell me, what are these animals? I know the quality isn't that great. So tell me, what is the animal in the top left corner?
A snake. Well, a pond.
Or what's
the start with P.
Miss, it is a python. It's a Jamaican python. It's a Jamaican yellow snake.
No, python.
The Jamaican yellow boa. So apparently there's a difference between boas and snakes and pythons. Yes, Alexander.
Pipers.
The second one is a parrotfish.
Right, the one right next to it is a parrotfish. So we have the Jamaican yellow boa, and then we have a parrotfish. And what's this
then
one
we have a
down
woodpecker.
here?
Miss
That's a lizard.
Caribbean woodpecker.
That's an iguana. What is right?
That's an iguana. Iguana. I said that.
That's just a Jamaican iguana.
Yes, that is the. Who said the Jamaican iguana?
Me, miss. That was
Jamaican person.
That is a Jamaican iguana. That is true. That is indeed a Jamaican iguana. So all of these are animals that you could find in your Caribbean, in your Jamaican ecosystem and in a Caribbean ecosystem overall, because Trinidad and Tobago has a lot of really nice parrotfish as well.
That's debatable.
And I know this. No, it does. It does. Trust me, I've been diving in Tobago, and it's really beautiful. It actually we should even have larger parrotfish than in Jamaica, because Jamaica tends to eat a lot of the parrotfish. So sometimes they don't wait until they grow to full size, because if you see a parrotfish at full size, like it's your arm, think of your arm, basically.
It's not Jamaica's parrotfish taste so nice.
I'm not saying no, I know parrotfish taste nice, but I'm just saying you'll have to wait until they reach adults, because if you get a full adult, actually be probably like the length of your arm. It's huge. It shouldn't even be able to fit on your plate, a full-grown parrotfish. So these are some of the animals. So we have the Jamaican yellow boa, a parrotfish. We have the Jamaican woodpecker.
Miss, why don't you put the doctor bird? Why don't you put the doctor bird? Why never put doctor bird with it?
You know, that's funny enough. Well, hold on, Drumita, I have something I might show you all a little later. I think I should send it to you all. It's the new for all the birds in Jamaica.
Without the parrotfish, it will be disturbing. Without the parrotfish, the coral will die.
Right, because the parrotfish tends to eat the algae that exists on the corals, right? And then so it eats it off, and that's what helps so that the corals grow and it doesn't suffocate them. So I know someone's gonna do a session on food pyramids later this week, but I just want to touch on certain things. I want to touch on what's a primary producer. So a primary producer is something that creates its own food, right? It produces its own food, right? They also call autotrophs, meaning that auto feeders, right? So they're bacteria. So these in the corner here are what? What you all think they are?
Cancer cells.
No, they are that's phytoplankton, right? So in the marine ecosystem, apart from we have marine plants as well, so we also have things like seaweed and those types of things. We also have what is known as phytoplankton. So these are some diatoms, and these are some small, tiny phytoplankton that some smaller fish feed on in order for them to get their energy, right? And this here is some algae on some rocks, algae and moss. So primary consumers are what we call most times herbivores, because they mainly eat plants and they eat plants. So for an example, cows, urchins, and pandas, right? So the sea urchins that you see, these black sea urchins, are very important to our Caribbean coral reef, because without them being there on the Caribbean coral reef, what tends to happen is that this type of urchin, also known as diadema, they eat the algae that tends to cover the coral reef. So diadema specifically, urchins in general, but diadema specifically, as well as parrotfish, are very important for the stability of a coral reef, because some years ago, I think in the 1960s or 70s, these urchins just suddenly died off. Like they just died off. And it really affected the state of the coral reef, you would be surprised. Okay, so we're moving on. Secondary consumers, these feed mainly on primary consumers. So they eat both animals and plants. So they're called omnivores, which most of you all know about, of course. It's like if you see this turtle, he's eating a squid, it seems, and it might also feed on some seaweed.
The squid is gonna get wrecked.
So tertiary consumers, they consume or feed largely on primary and secondary consumers, right? So you see they feed on, so alligators, they mainly feed on fish. So this is not alligator, sorry, this is a crocodile. This is a crocodile. I think this is the American crocodile that also exists in Jamaica. And you see the eagle, an eagle will most likely feed on like small to medium-sized animals.
American bald eagle.
The American bald eagle, indeed, yes. So they eat a lot of rats, sometimes some snakes, and so eagles are pretty tough. Decomposers are an important part of the ecosystem. A lot of people don't know about that. This is soil, and this is like organisms when they die and they cycle into and yes, and tutu or dudu, whatever you choose to call it. Right? So, or excrement or feces. Those are
fungi is the decomposers.
Fungi tends to decompose. So decomposers play a critical role in the flow of energy, right? So they break apart the dead organisms into simple materials, and then the plants can take it back up, and then it cycles again, right? So the ecosystem is also, most of the times it creates a cycle, because once you die, you go back into the dirt, and then from the dirt, the plants take you up, and then you start back the food chain again. So a terrestrial ecosystem, they exist on land, and they include tropical rainforests, deserts, temperate grasslands, deciduous forests, tundras, and coniferous forests, right? So they encompass only about 30% of the Earth's surface, 28% to be more specific. But tropical rainforests produce about 45% of the Earth's organic chemical energy. That's really interesting, I find. So I have a video, but I'm not gonna play it now because we don't have that much time. So I don't want it to keep you all too long. And so we're gonna look at this little poster for the desert, right? So you have little vegetation, and it can grow in the desert. Okay, so little vegetation that grow in the desert. So we have a lot of cactus and succulents, and apparently succulents are good plants to keep, especially if you're like me. I don't really keep plants good. So I think I need to get a succulent, because apparently you don't have to water it as much and they're able to survive. So I think that's what I need, because I struggle to keep a plant alive. Tropical rainforests. They encompass 2/3 of all flowering plants that can be found in a rainforest. And the floor is covered in nutrient-rich leaf litter, right? And the soil is very acidic. So in a tropical rainforest, it's very hot and humid. Those here from Trinidad, what type of rainforest, what type of forest we have? Do we have tropical rainforest, temperate
water
rainforest?
Forest. Wait. River.
So Justin saying a type of well, a wet forest. We have a wet forest mainly. Tell me what else we have. Anybody else? Tell me.
Dry forest.
Well, I don't think we in Trinidad specifically. I think we mainly have kind of wet tropical rainforest because we have a climate similar to South America because of how close we are to South America. So that's why even though I always explain this to people that even though Jamaica is a true island, but Jamaica has less that biodiversity than Trinidad because Trinidad has the biodiversity of a mainland continent. So when we broke off from South America, we have basically almost all the animals and all the plants that they would have had on that large continent. So that's why we have a high biodiversity. Whereas with Jamaica, because it's a true island, that kind of through the geology kind of builds up in the middle of the ocean more or less and then break off from anywhere. Because of that, most of the animals had to come there via some sort of migration and build up their own ecosystem. So there are 4 layers to
Miss,
Jermaine,
the only reason Trinidad has more diversity than Jamaica is because it was attached to South America before, while Jamaica was more isolated.
Right, exactly that. So Jamaica is what we call a true island because they were able to build it built up from the water, right? Whereas Trinidad detached from South America, and that's how it became an island. And well, Trinidad and Tobago, but Tobago itself is created more from the plates in the Eastern Caribbean, and that's how Tobago was created. So Tobago is even to some extent a true island, and their ecosystem is very interesting as well if you look at it. So in the tropical rainforest, we have the forest floor. Then so that's the floor of the forest, where you're rested, you have a few shrubs, and the forest floor is more or less kind of dead because I don't know if you can see this one, it explains that bacteria, fungi, and insects rapidly decompose organic matter and recycle nutrients for use by the other organisms. So the forest floor, people think it has a lot of things on it, but not necessarily. Oh gosh, right. And then we have the understory, which is kind of dark, very gloomy. You can't really see much, right? There's not a lot of sunlight. So what happens is that a lot of vines, they have to go upwards towards the sun, if for those plants that need sunlight. Then the canopy is the upper layer, and that's where you mostly get your sunlight. And then you have the emergence. Those are the plants that are able to emerge past majority of the other plants, right? So if you look at the forest floor, what type of, so tell me the animals you see in here. So tell me what this is here. The one in the left corner.
Miss, the first one is a centipede. People call it a millipede if it's small, but the common name is a centipede.
Right.
The next one.
This is definitely a centipede because centi means 100, and it's like 100 legs. Millipedes have like
but
almost
most
like
centipedes do not have
legs.
more than 40 legs, Miss.
Exactly, that's true. They do, and that's why Jamaicans call them 40 legs.
40
right?
legs, yes, Miss.
Yeah, exactly. So it's the closest one is probably 100, and then the millipedes. I don't think the millipedes have like 1,000, but they have a little closer to. They have like hundreds more so because like tiny fine legs. So that's one. So let me hear a Trinidadian. I want to add a Trinidadian or someone from the Eastern Caribbean should know what this animal is. Hi, Alexandra. Yes, I said that's someone from the Eastern Caribbean.
Antita.
No. The one on the looking at the one on the bottom left. The bottom left.
Tell me what
that is. No, not a mongoose.
This is a mongoose.
Something like that.
Is it agouti?
Agouti. Who say agouti?
I did.
What's the name? I don't see the name coming up into when I was talking.
Waldron.
Hi, Ivanka. Right. So it is agouti, right? And then what's the one on the top right?
It is an anteater.
Yes, it's a form of anteater. Awesome. And what is inside? You're not seeing the head of this animal down at the bottom here, but I think you all should have an idea of what it is. What is the animal?
It's just python.
Right, but anyone could guess what specific type of
a normal plankton.
No, very specific. It's very fair because they had a movie about it some years ago.
Anaconda.
An anaconda. Anaconda, yes, an anaconda. So these scents exist on the forest floor. right? Because I mean, you know, anacondas, they kind of like the damp and the wet, even more than some snakes, because some snakes like to bask, but I know the anaconda especially really likes like the wet kind of riverine environment. The understory, right? So that's where understory you have like a lot of small bugs and creatures. You get a lot of jaguars and frogs as well. What type of frog is this? What do you think it is? We're looking at the out.
A poisonous.
Yes, Alexandra, good job. Good
Yes,
job.
miss.
Good
It's
job,
a poison
Ethan, as
dart
well.
frog. Miss, it all
Yes, a
depends on
poison
the
dart
poison
frog.
dart frog color, miss. To depend on how poisonous it is. The lighter the color, the more poisonous.
Okay. You don't need to hear that.
I miss the poison dart frog is only found on a chain of islands.
Yeah, we already know that.
Okay, so students, I want you all to always be respectful of each other and don't cut off each other. But yes, okay, thank you, Tremaine. I didn't know that the color, I know the colors kind of signal that, hey, you should stay away from them. And from what I read, I heard that the native persons who live there, the indigenous persons, they would use the skin of the poison dart frog and rub their spears on them and then shoot down like jaguars or like big cats. And that's how they would get their animals to eat, because they would use the poison from the frog to kind of
poison the meat.
that's what I'm thinking too. But I think maybe once you capture it, I think it doesn't circulate, because it paralyzes them almost immediately and they're able to kill them. So I think apart from that section, I think the rest of the animals should be fine and edible. So yeah.
Use the furs to make clothes.
If I could use the what?
Yes, and they could use the fur of the animal to make clothes.
To make clothes, exactly, because one of the things I read about with indigenous people, they use every single part of an animal, right? Like even down to the bones, they would use the bones again to build something. They always do that, right? So that's awesome. Let's move on.
Oh, miss.
Yeah, yes, Jermaine.
You know, also know about poison dart frogs that they do not consider any poison dart frog that is not of the same color to them a threat.
Oh.
If they are the same color, they fight.
Oh, wow, that's fascinating. I think I might watch some more videos on them. That's good. The canopy. So tell me, what's this animal up in the corner, the top corner?
Orangutan.
Red
No, it's not
monkey.
an orangutan. Red monkey. What type of red monkey? Somebody call it another name. Three letters. Huh? I know. No, this is not actually not even a macaw. This is a toucan, I believe. So the one at the top, though, the monkey at the top. What type of monkey is it? Red what monkey? We have them right here in Trinidad. I think this is a photo from Trinidad.
Howler?
The howlers, the red howlers. Because when you go, I see them almost everywhere. Because in the bush, like if you go, you will see them. Even when you go down to shagaramas, you see them in the trees. You know, they're trying to warn you to stay far. And then down at the bottom, what type of bird is that?
The toucan.
Toucan.
Right, it's a toucan. So these toucans, they tend to live kind of higher up in the trees, because monkeys could move about fast and they could climb, and then the toucans could fly. And at the emergent layer, what type of organisms you see in here? So the one at the top is a what? We know what type of
Butterfly.
Right, it's a blue morpho butterfly. And the other ape, what you call it? Somebody from Trinidad should know. Let me hear Justin, Ivanka, or I saw a name.
White-footed capuchin.
Capuchin. It's a capuchin monkey. Remember, we have a lot of capuchins in Trinidad, and some people even want to try to keep them as pets. See, because of how light they are, they're small, they're able to move about very quickly, very, very quickly.